Admittedly, it had been a challenging year, not just for Samantha, my wife, but for all of us. For years, I worked for a company specializing in custom fasteners for manufacturers. When a company creates a product, they can't just go to the local hardware store and buy screws. Everything has to be made to their specifications. Beginning in sales, I steadily climbed the ladder to become the sales manager. It was a rewarding position, both professionally and financially. Meeting all 4 quarterly quotas, which I consistently did, ensured a substantial year-end bonus, often pushing my earnings well beyond the 6-figure mark. Despite the growing competition from overseas manufacturers, I led a dedicated sales team that consistently outperformed previous years. About a year ago, a sudden meeting summoned all company executives, myself included. Shockingly, we learned that the company's owner was retiring and had been in clandestine negotiations with a California conglomerate for a buyout. We were being sold off. The arrival of a new CEO brought promises of job security and continuity in management, promises that quickly proved false. Within a mere 2 months, the company began a wave of layoffs. Sensing the impending changes, I began actively seeking new employment, but the inevitable came before I secured another position. With a handshake and a modest severance check of $10,000, I found myself escorted out the door. Initially, Samantha and I remained relatively optimistic, but as the months elapsed, I began to grasp the shifts in the economy that had occurred during my tenure in my comfortable job. Not only had much of the manufacturing relocated overseas, but even many domestic firms were sourcing their fasteners internationally. I pondered over how we managed to maintain our resilience amidst such changes, but dwelling on that was a luxury I could no longer afford. I needed to secure employment. During this period, our 17-year-old son, Donald, was graduating from high school. His decision to enlist in the military immediately after graduation elicited mixed emotions for me. With the ongoing turmoil in the Middle East, concerns for his safety loomed large, and naturally, both Samantha and I anticipated missing him terribly. On the other hand, there was a sense of relief knowing that we wouldn't have to bear the financial burden of college expenses, which frankly, we couldn't afford. Around 5 months post-termination, it became increasingly evident that finding another 6-figure job would be challenging. I adjusted my expectations and began considering positions with lower salaries. Meanwhile, Samantha decided to seek employment as well. Surprisingly, she secured a job before I did, landing a position as a junior secretary at a software company. Though the pay was modest, it exceeded what I received from unemployment benefits, providing some relief during our financial strain. About a month after Samantha landed her job, I secured a sales position at Enright Automotive, a company specializing in aftermarket car parts. During the initial couple of months, I earned a nominal salary while undergoing training. Subsequently, I transitioned to a compensation structure consisting of both salary and commission. Realistically, it was never going to be a lucrative position. The highest paid salesman in the company had been there for 12 years and barely made $60,000 annually. The strain on our finances was palpable. We were accustomed to the trappings of affluence: a comfortable home with a solid mortgage, 2 BMW sedans, only one of which was fully paid off, mine, a 5-year-old BMW 5 Series, and a collection of credit cards, most of which were already maxed out. Moreover, Samantha and I sorely missed our evenings out on the town. It was a cherished aspect of our lifestyle, a testament to the notion that enjoying life was just as important as financial success. We used to frequent restaurants with friends, indulge in dancing, catch shows, plays, or concerts whenever the mood struck us. Our outings weren't scheduled date nights. Rather, we spontaneously embraced opportunities for enjoyment, typically 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes even more frequently. Regrettably, one of the first casualties of our financial cutbacks was our social life. The adjustment seemed to weigh heavier on Samantha than on me. Unlike me, who only began to enjoy outings in college, Samantha had grown up accustomed to frequent socializing with her family, making the transition particularly difficult for her. Months had passed since our last night out, and Samantha's frustration was mounting. She couldn't bear another evening cooped up at home. About 3 months ago, she finally voiced her discontent. "Calvin, we have to do something. I can't stand another night stuck at home. I want to go out and have fun like we used to. Samantha's plea couldn't have come at a worse time. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through our bills, attempting to slowly but surely climb out of our financial hole. "Sure, no problem," I responded sarcastically, gesturing towards the stack of bills. "Just tell me which of these we shouldn't pay." Her glare pierced through me. For a moment, I thought she might explode, but she remained silent, her thoughts guarded. Almost immediately, I regretted my tone. "I'm sorry, honey," I apologized. "I promise this won't last forever. I'm still searching for a better job. In the meantime, we just need to tighten our belts a bit." "Tighten our belts," she snapped back. "Calvin, it's been nearly a year. I feel like I'm suffocating. I need to breathe to have some fun." "I understand, honey, I do," I reassured her, attempting to soothe her frustrations. "But look, we're making progress. 5 months ago, we missed a mortgage payment and almost lost your car to repossession. With this month's commission check, we'll be nearly caught up. Just give it a little more time." Samantha's expression remained tense. She wasn't convinced, and I couldn't blame her. Then, an idea struck me. "What if we go to Lincoln Park Zoo this weekend?" I suggested eagerly. "It's free, and we haven't been there since Donald was little." "I don't want nature, Calvin. I want nightlife," she retorted sharply. "I want to dine, drink, and dance until I can't feel my feet." "Honey, please," I pleaded, "just a bit longer. Once we're caught up, we'll celebrate with a nice dinner out, I promise." Silently, she retreated upstairs, leaving me to mull over the situation. A heavy sigh escaped me. I truly felt remorseful. However, the reality of our financial constraints lingered in my mind. Living in Chicago meant that a simple night out, with parking and dinner for two, easily amounted to a couple $100s, if not more. Raised in a household where prioritizing bills was paramount, I couldn't justify such expenditure while we struggled to stay afloat, barely managing the minimum payments on our credit cards each month. It took me another 10 minutes to wrap up my tasks. As I contemplated watching the news, the thought of Samantha upstairs prompted me to check on her first. Entering our bedroom, I found her perched on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face. Guilt washed over me as I sat down beside her, pulling her close. "I'm sorry, babe. I'm trying my best," I murmured, resting my cheek against the top of her head. "I know," she sniffled. "It's just been such a tough year, and now with Donald gone, we should be planning weekend getaways. Instead, we're stuck here. It's almost like being imprisoned. I thought debtor's prison was a thing of the past," she scoffed bitterly. It was unfortunate that she didn't notice the simmering anger on my face as she spoke. Our house, labeled as a prison, elicited a visceral reaction within me. I never wanted to purchase it in the first place. It felt too extravagant and burdensome. However, once Samantha laid eyes on it, she insisted on making it ours. Now, as I struggled to maintain it amidst financial turmoil, hearing her refer to it in such disparaging terms stung deeply. I faced a choice: confront her about her analogy or simply walk away. I opted for the latter. In the following months, tensions between Samantha and me escalated. Our conversations dwindled, becoming terse and devoid of meaning. We found ourselves occupying separate spaces within our own home more frequently. Samantha didn't hold back her dissatisfaction with me, particularly regarding our lack of outings. I understood her desire for a reprieve, but I couldn't ignore our precarious financial situation. I agreed that we both needed a release, but I insisted on prioritizing our bills before indulging in leisure activities. Despite my promises of a future night out, her discontent persisted. Tensions reached a tipping point one Friday evening after work. I returned home in unusually high spirits, having just sealed a promising contract. With the commission awaiting me at month's end, I looked forward to treating my beloved wife to a memorable evening. However, before I could share the news, I was met with an unexpected sight. As I entered, Samantha descended the staircase, exquisitely dressed to the nines. "Wow," I remarked, taking in her appearance. "What's the occasion?" "I'm heading out with some coworkers," she replied, her tone tinged with sarcasm. "Don't worry, they're footing the bill." Instantly, a sense of unease washed over me. Something felt off. While I had never doubted Samantha's fidelity, her choice of attire and the mention of her friends covering expenses didn't sit right. My wife was a woman of pride, unlikely to accept such generosity without cause. It didn't align with her character to accept charity from others. The possibility of her rendezvousing with another man lingered in the back of my mind, causing a chill to run down my spine. And who exactly are these girls? Can you at least tell me their names? I pressed, my concern evident in my tone. She shrugged off my question with a dismissive wave. Just some coworkers from the office. You wouldn't know them. That's not the point, Samantha, I countered, frustration creeping into my voice. You don't dress like that for a casual outing with girlfriends. Who are you meeting? Do you have a date with someone else? Don't be ridiculous, she retorted casually. I already told you it's just a girls' night out. If you're going to be paranoid, that's your problem, not mine. At that moment, a car horn sounded from outside. Peering through the window, I spotted a cab waiting in our driveway. You're taking a taxi. Yes, I plan to have a good time tonight. We both know we can't afford a DUI, so I thought it was the sensible choice. And let me guess, I snapped, my anger rising. Your friends are footing the bill for that too. As a matter of fact, yes, they are, she confirmed, leaning in to give me a quick peck on the cheek. There are leftovers from last night in the fridge. You can heat them up for dinner. I might be out late, so don't bother waiting up. With those words, she breezed out the door, leaving me seething with frustration. As Samantha slipped into the back seat of the car, I couldn't discern anyone else accompanying her. Denial briefly consumed me. Despite the evident tension between us, I couldn't fathom the notion of my wife actually meeting another man. We had a son, a life built together. She wouldn't betray that, I reassured myself. It simply couldn't be true. While I mechanically reheated leftovers in the microwave, a storm of doubt brewed within me. I desperately wanted to believe Samantha was merely enjoying a night out with her coworkers, but reality gnawed at my resolve. Driven by a growing sense of unease, I turned to the computer and swiftly located the number for the taxi service. Upon reaching the dispatcher, I requested the destination of the cab that had just departed from my residence, providing my address as reference. Surprisingly, the dispatcher didn't raise any privacy concerns, readily disclosing the information. Plato's Place, 3560 Elmhurst Road. My heart sank. I knew the establishment all too well. Samantha and I had dined there on a couple of occasions. It was a romantic restaurant with an intimate bar area, dimly lit and secluded, certainly not the setting for a casual evening with girlfriends. No, Plato's Place was the kind of place where a man would take a woman to woo her, to seduce her. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, shattering my illusions of innocence. As the buzzer signaled the completion of my dinner, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Weren't husbands and wives supposed to unite in times of hardship, not betray each other? I toyed with the idea of dining alone at Plato's Place, contemplating my next move. The establishment boasted 2 entrances, one for the lounge and another for the restaurant. Opting for the lounge entrance to bypass the hostess, I bypassed the bar, uninterested in a drink, and headed straight for the dining area. A quick scan of the room confirmed my worst fears. There sat my wife, accompanied by another man. Though her back was turned, her silhouette was unmistakable. They conversed over appetizers, a bottle of wine already adorning the table. Rage simmered within me as I fixed my gaze upon the interloper attempting to woo my wife. With purposeful strides, I closed the distance between us. As I approached, the man, Mr. Slick, as I mentally dubbed him, suddenly halted mid-sentence, his demeanor shifting to one of apprehension. Our eyes met, and his nervousness was palpable. Just as I drew within a few feet, Samantha glanced over her shoulder, her expression morphing from surprise to guilt as she beheld my presence. "Calvin," she exclaimed, taken aback, "what are you doing here?" "I came to meet your girlfriends," I retorted bitterly, "and who's the jerk?" "Hey," he interjected, beginning to rise from his seat. "Go ahead, make a move," I warned, my voice dripping with threat. "You know damn well she's married, but I guess that doesn't matter to you, does it?" He hesitated, caught between standing and sitting, while my wife attempted to diffuse the tension. "Calvin, please, let's not make a scene," she pleaded. "This is Keith. He's a coworker. Since he won't take me out," he offered. "He was just trying to be kind." "Kind? My foot," I growled. "He's just trying to get in your pants." Eyeing Keith once more, I could tell he thought better of challenging me, sinking back into his seat. "Your night's over," I informed my wife firmly. She hesitated briefly, but like Keith, she opted not to test my resolve any further. "I apologize for this," she said to Keith as she stood up. As I led her out of the restaurant, I could feel the weight of every gaze upon us. Not a word was exchanged during the tense car ride home, but the moment we stepped into the house, the air crackled with tension. "What was that all about, Samantha? Tell me. Have you suddenly decided I'm no longer worthy of being your husband?" I demanded, my voice laced with anger. "No, of course not. I just wanted to have some fun for a change," she replied defensively. "Who is this Keith? How long have you been seeing each other?" I interrogated, my frustration mounting. "He's just a coworker, and we haven't been seeing each other. We've had lunch a few times, that's all. I mentioned missing going out, and he offered to take me for dinner and dancing. So I accepted. So sue me," she retorted sarcastically. "I can't believe this," I muttered, feeling stunned. "I thought our marriage was stronger than this. Are you ready to bail on me at the first sign of trouble?" "Who said anything about bailing? I work too, you know. I deserve to enjoy myself once in a while. If you won't take me out, why should I turn down someone who will?" She shot back, her tone defiant. "Because you're my wife, damn it." I raised my voice, my frustration boiling over. "We're supposed to be a team." She didn't respond, but the disdain in her expression was evident. "Is this what our marriage has come to? Do I have to worry about who you're with when you're out of my sight? What were your intentions for the end of the night? Were you planning to sleep with him?" I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. "Of course not," she replied abruptly, her tone firm. I gazed at the woman who had been my partner for nearly 2 decades, and for the first time, doubt clouded my perception of her integrity. "I don't believe you," I uttered firmly. "You deceived me about going out with girlfriends, showing little concern when I doubted you then. Why should I trust you now? Yes, it's been a challenging year, but a wife is supposed to stand by her husband. Remember our vows? For richer or poorer, in sickness and in health." In that moment, clarity washed over me like a wave. "Our marriage is over," I declared, the words heavy with finality. Her response was dismissive. "Don't be absurd," she scoffed. "We're broke, remember? You can't afford a lawyer, let alone a divorce. Hell, you can't even afford to move out." I longed to deliver a cutting rejoinder, but I was too stunned to formulate a coherent response. It seems some people were ill-equipped to confront adversity. It was evident that she no longer loved or respected me. After 19 years, my marriage had disintegrated in the blink of an eye. Anger surged within me, stifling any urge to break down and weep. Without another word, I ascended the stairs to begin packing a suitcase. After a tense 10 minutes, Samantha finally approached, her voice sharp with accusation. "What's this?" she demanded, eyeing my packed suitcase. "Oh, I see. You can't take me out to dinner, but you can afford a night in a motel." "Fine." Her words rang out as she stormed out of the room. Enright Automotive outsourced much of its inventory production overseas, but we still had some items manufactured in-house. Adjacent to the offices was a small plant, complete with a spacious shower room for the workers to freshen up before heading home, and a couch in the reception area. A shower and a place to sleep, that's all I needed for now. As I descended the stairs with my suitcase, Samantha was in the kitchen. She called out as she heard the door open, but I didn't pause to listen. I hastily threw my clothes into the car and departed without a word. I hadn't even gone a mile down the street before my phone began to ring incessantly. Strapped in with my seatbelt, I couldn't reach it, so I let it go to voicemail. Yet my curiosity got the better of me, and as soon as I arrived at the office, I retrieved my phone from my pocket, pondering what Samantha might have to say. "Calvin, you're being childish," her voice echoed through the voicemail. "I told you I had no intention of sleeping with Keith, and I meant it. Now get your ass back home." It was far from the apology and plead for reconciliation I had expected. I decided to leave most of my belongings in the car. No need to advertise my personal turmoil to everyone at work. It was still early, so I retreated to the break room, hoping to distract myself with some TV. Yet my troubles weighed heavily on my mind, rendering any attempt at diversion futile. I couldn't shake the nagging thought of what might have transpired if I hadn't intervened at the restaurant. Would Samantha truly have returned home after a night of dancing? The uncertainty gnawed at me, exacerbated by my distrust of that slimy Keith. He didn't strike me as the type to give up easily. I could envision him relentlessly pursuing her until he got what he wanted. Frustrated with my futile attempts to occupy myself, I eventually resigned to setting an early alarm, allowing me to shower and dress before the factory workers began arriving at 7. As I lay in bed, wrestling with my thoughts, I pondered my next steps. Samantha was correct. I lacked the financial means for a lawyer or even a new apartment. I needed to devise a plan. Yet her blatant disregard for our marriage and for me personally left me with a resolve not to grovel back home with my tail between my legs. I was pleasantly surprised when the alarm roused me from sleep the next morning. I couldn't believe I managed to rest so well on that uncomfortable couch. It felt more like a medieval torture device. After a quick shower and dressing, I headed to a nearby restaurant for a leisurely breakfast. As I sat sipping my 4th cup of coffee, a sudden epiphany struck me like lightning. The solution to my predicament seemed so obvious, yet it had eluded me until now. Returning to Enright's parking lot, I pulled out my cell phone and snapped a photo. Once seated at my desk, I wasted no time in running the ad. 2 days later, I took the afternoon off to attend to some errands. With Samantha at work, I seized the opportunity to retrieve the necessary documents from our personal filing cabinet at home, grabbing the spare set of keys on my way out. Later that day, I checked into a motel and dialed Samantha's number. As soon as she heard my voice, she launched into a tirade. "It's about time. Are you done with your little hissy fit now? I can't believe you couldn't find the money to take me out to dinner, but you can stay in a motel for 2 days. Samantha scolded as soon as she answered the phone. Actually, I interjected, cutting her off. I stayed at the office. The office. Yeah, they have a shower, a nice comfortable couch, and a TV room. All the comforts of home, I replied, stretching the truth. Her response was more of the same. Well, that's just ridiculous. Stop being so stubborn and come home. I'm not coming home, Samantha. I've made it clear our marriage is over. I called to let you know you'll need a ride home. What? Why? What's wrong with the car? Nothing, I answered calmly. It drives like a dream, better than mine. There was a moment of silence as she processed my words. Calvin, what are you talking about? I sold my car, got 18 grand for it. That's more than enough to get a lawyer started on the divorce and a down payment on an apartment. And since both cars are in my name, I took yours. I stopped by the house earlier today and got the titles to both cars and the spare keys to yours. Calvin, she shrieked in disbelief. You can't do that. What am I supposed to drive? Actually, since both cars are in my name, I can do that. I didn't take anything out of the accounts. All the bills are paid for the month, so there wasn't much left. But if you budget, you should have plenty for food and cab fare. And if you run low, I'm sure Keith will be more than happy to take you out for dinner, providing you give him what he wants, of course. Suddenly, Samantha's tone shifted to one of remorse and pleading. Calvin, please don't do this. Hi, I never thought you'd really go this far. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone out with Keith, but I was angry. Honestly, nothing was going to happen. Samantha, you lied to me, went on a date with another man behind my back, and then treated me with disdain and showed absolutely no remorse when I caught you. Admit it, Samantha, you don't love or respect me. You made that plain as day with the way you talked to me the other night. Calvin, I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry too, Samantha. We had a good run when life was easy, but when things got tough, we let each other down. I replied, my voice tinged with resignation. He was taken aback by a sob from the other end of the line, but it made no difference anymore. I pressed on. The house is in both our names. It's our one decent asset, so it needs to be sold as quickly as possible, I explained, hearing her gasp. Sell the house. Calvin, do we have to? She pleaded. Samantha, right now, we're up to date with the mortgage, but I'm not making any more house payments, and there's no way you can cover them every month. Yes, it has to be sold immediately. I estimate we each should be able to walk away with $50,000 or $60,000 each. You can use that to buy yourself a decent used car and find an apartment. Calvin, I don't want a divorce. Please, can't we talk about this? She implored. Sorry, Samantha, it's no longer about what you want. Now do you want to call a realtor, or should I? Epilogue. Samantha stood on the sidewalk outside her apartment, her gaze drifting up to the gray sky as a flock of geese honked their way northward, a reassuring sign that spring was on its way. She navigated through the melting slush, making her way to her 10-year-old Chrysler, and headed towards Starbucks to meet an old friend. The anticipation of seeing Chloe brought a smile to Samantha's face. It had been a typical Chicago winter, cold temperatures, abundant snow, and treacherous roads, keeping Samantha mostly confined to her apartment when she wasn't at work. Inside Starbucks, Chloe had already claimed a small table in the corner, savoring her latte. Samantha greeted her friend with a kiss on the cheek before joining the line for her own Colombian brew. As she waited, Samantha relished the chance to catch up with a friend, appreciating the opportunity to step out and enjoy some company. Returning to the table with her coffee, Samantha was met with a warm smile and a familiar voice, brightening her day even more. Samantha, it's so good to see you. It's been a while, Chloe greeted, her voice filled with warmth. Yes, it has. Too long, Samantha replied, a hint of melancholy in her tone. I don't get out much anymore. Why's that? You were the life of the party back in the day. Yeah, well, life was simpler then. I don't have the money for outings like I used to. What about dates? Remember those? Going out with a handsome man who foots the bill, Chloe teased. Samantha chuckled lightly. It's a bit of a catch-22. Can't meet men if you don't go out, but can't afford to go out if you're not with a man. What about guys at work? Dweebs and married men, nothing exciting, Samantha countered. Let's change the subject, it's a bit depressing. How are the kids? Oh, they're thriving. Lucas Jr. just got a promotion, and Emily is already in her 3rd year of college. They grow up so fast, don't they? They really do, Samantha agreed. Donald has 1 more year in the military, and he's already considering re-enlisting. He enjoys it. How's your husband? Lucas is doing well, as hardworking as ever. Samantha noticed the hesitant look on her friend's face. What's up? Oh, nothing, Chloe replied, looking a bit sheepish. Come on, spill it. You were about to ask me something. Well, I was just curious if you've seen Calvin lately. No, not since we finalized the divorce, Samantha said, reminiscing for a moment. Wow, that was 2 years ago already. Why do you ask? I just wondered. I'm not sure if I should tell you, but I think you should hear it from a friend. What is it, Chloe? Is everything okay with him? Yeah, he's fine. I bumped into him the other day, and well, he's getting married again. Even though she had long accepted the end of their relationship, the news still hit Samantha hard. She felt a lump form in her throat as tears threatened to spill over. I guess I'm not surprised, she admitted quietly, her voice heavy with sorrow. He's a good man. Her gaze fell to her hands, fidgeting with the coffee cup. Sometimes I look back at what we had, and I wonder how I could have been so blind. Taking a sip of her coffee, she lifted her eyes to meet her friend's gaze. I did love him, you know. Truly, I did. But when the bills piled up and the stress mounted, I lost sight of what mattered. I just wanted an escape from our problems, a bit of fun. Chloe listened in silence, offering her presence and understanding. Calvin was right about everything, Samantha continued, her voice tinged with regret. I lost respect for him, maybe even stopped loving him for a while. It wasn't fair. Losing his job wasn't his fault, and he was doing everything he could to keep us afloat. She paused, a pang of guilt washing over her. I remember when he suggested we go to the zoo one weekend, but I brushed him off, insisting on my night out instead. He was even right about Keith, Samantha admitted, a sense of remorse evident in her voice as she recounted the painful memories. That was the guy he caught me having dinner with. Calvin asked if I had plans to sleep with him, and I did. Chloe, I had every intention of doing just that. Chloe's expression softened, her empathy palpable. Oh, Samantha. Yeah, I know. Samantha sighed heavily, her regret weighing heavily on her. Believe me, Chloe, if I could go back and do things differently, I would. Is he still in that little apartment he moved into? Chloe hesitated, unsure how to broach the topic. Actually, no. You didn't hear, she began cautiously. What now? Did he hit the jackpot or something? Samantha asked, half-jokingly. Chloe shook her head. Not quite, but he did get his old job back at Vans. It happened a few months after your divorce was finalized. Apparently, they started losing customers after they let Calvin go, so they reached out to him and he eventually accepted. And get this, he's making more now than he ever did. A tear slipped down Samantha's cheek as Chloe finished speaking. I'm sorry, honey. I shouldn't have brought it up. No, Samantha replied, shaking her head. It's my own fault. There have been so many nights where I've wished I could turn back time, prayed for the last 2 years to just be a bad dream. But then I wake up and face reality again. She wiped away her tears with a napkin. I genuinely am happy for him. Please, tell him that for me if you see him again, okay? I will, honey, Chloe promised, her voice filled with sympathy. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, and the friends enjoyed each other's company. But as Samantha drove away and the fixade faded, she couldn't hold back her tears any longer, breaking down in the solitude of her car. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.